Locho sambo pa gyu trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda. Pelge drolor zambe tse parache. Palden lame shabla solvade. Omo a guru vajra dara suma timo nisha sane karma. Uta varda nishri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Om guru vajradar sumatimo nisha sane karma. Uta varda nishri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Om guru vajradara sumatimo nisha sane karma. Uta varda nishri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Om guru vajradar sumatimo nisha sane karma. Uta varda nishri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Dagi jetsun lama tuje jenyam dala tuje sikso so gebe shesan dala tendo so uyon sunge nawa tsedo teje nine so wa debe tse dejen korlo viso lekshone yila sambe dedem gemel hinge drubra jinge lo tsoni sodan digdun shabe tse dunge namge yinso lek labjen tsoni yonso zoba dan cherani dun chamra jinge lo chanjo parge ninsen tugun tu nyu peme siru lek chanjo drube gegen kun shishi tungen de la drubra jinge lo dagi lo na chola choba dan chomin samjur ngenba shiu chodan tumbe dudun ma lepa beme lungi drubra jinge lo dorna tene tera tamche dan teche pardo ne ka Rese gyamne lama kele me tuje chingi dala sikso so gongyab drewe nyamda da jala jetsun lame tuje ra. Kudan sungi nawa drame tu nyamso nyongwe kesan topra sho kewa kundu yanda lam. Drame chegi pela loncho chen sada lamge yunte rabzone. Dorje change koba nyurto vesho. Akyuke akudandagi lo pakyuke sundandaki Pakyuke tudandagi Yatuyerme chiktu jingilo Pakyuke kudandagilo Pakyuke sundandagi Pakyuke tudandagi Tuyerme chiktu jingilo Makyuke kudandagilo Makyuke sundandagi Makyuke tudandagi Tuyerme chiktu jingilo Om Mahamuni Shakyamunyen Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha. Sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho bardo dane kyapso che dage jinso gibe sonam gi drola pinchira sangye druparasho. Sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho bardo dane kyapso che dage jinso gibe sonam gi Drola pinchira sangye druparasha. Sangye chodan tsoge chonamla. Chancho pardo dani kyapsochi. Dage chinso gibe sonamgi. Drola pinchira sangye druparasha. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge unto enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So, what happens is that when the teachings of Buddha were given originally, they were given in a quite different context of the one in which we are nowadays. People had a very different mindset, had a very different worldview of the one that we have nowadays. And what happened is that whenever we listen to anything, whenever we enter in contact with anyone, inevitably, we will enter in contact with that person, we will perceive, we will listen through the worldview that we have. A few days ago, I had the opportunity to have some hours talking with one professor, one anthropologist here in Italy. Very open person, very wise, with a lot of experience. And one of the questions I did to him was if he agreed with the fact that on the basis of our worldview, of our paradigm, are the fundamental aspects of the monotheistic religions. We are influenced by the monotheistic religions. We are influenced by the mechanicist view of Newton, a very materialistic view of reality. And we are influenced by the capitalist system. So this, for me, is personally quite clear. I was asking him from a total different context, and he fully agreed with that. So this was good for me to see also that it is matching. But the point is that these three things, if we look in the past, in the time of Buddha or later in Tibet, how strong were people influenced by monotheistic views? Zero. They had other influences, but not this one. How strong were they influenced by a materialistic view, a mechanicist view, such as first Newton? Zero. In India, there was one tradition called in Tibetan Gyangpempa, which was quite materialistic, but this was one of the many influences. And how often people were influenced, how strong were people influenced in India at that time or later in Tibet by the capitalist view? Zero. So finally, what happens is that we see that the same teachings were being given in a very different context than the one in which we are nowadays. So the same words, the same teachings, the way how we listen to it and the way how they listened to it is different. There is also a matter of translation. There is a matter of wording. No? So there are words that don't exist in our vocabulary. There are words that we try to translate, but we are not truly able to translate well. No? So this is also one of the facts that it becomes difficult because our tendency is to translate something, to make a word out of it. But the problem is that the word that we used as a translation doesn't necessarily have the same meaning that the one that was used in the original language. This is a big problem of translations. No? And we receive the teachings through translations. So, for example, there is one word, I was reading some time ago one paper written by one professor in America. And he made a study about the fact that in Tibetan language, the word emotion doesn't exist. But the word for the different emotions, such as anger or fear or whatever, do exist. So, even in our own language, in every language, the meaning of words change in time. He was, for example, in that paper talking about emotion, and he was saying, yes, but in our own culture, if you look, 100, 200 years ago, emotion meant this. Nowadays, emotion means that. In between, emotion was meaning that other thing. So even we are not so sure about what words really mean, you know. As times goes by, we change the meaning of words. That's the problem of sticking too much to the verbal and literal meaning of things. We need to adapt the way of explaining as the way of talking change in time. Okay? So even we have this problem of translation. So when things come to us, not only we are influenced by our own view, we listen to the words of a language that doesn't have concepts that the other person have, because communication is, I have an idea, I have a concept, an emotion, I transform that into sound, into words, you listen to the word, what I'm saying, and you develop understanding and emotions, feelings, experiences. So, when is the communication correct? When I say something, and you perceive something quite similar to what I am saying, what I intend. Okay? So I believe that when we listen nowadays to the teachings of Buddha, it's not so simple for us truly to understand what he meant, because we come from a very different background, from a very different context. And if we look to ourselves also, it's very beautiful to see, for me at least, it has always been so nice, when we re-listen to the same teachings again, to the same concepts again, after 10, 20 years, whatever, and we listen to it differently. For example, for me, I have nowadays a very different understanding of the Four Noble Truths that I used to have many years ago, by receiving the same identical explanation. Because I have changed. So the way how we listen, the way how we understand is fully influenced by the way how we are. No? Even, for example, there is the word emotions, as I was saying before. There is no word in Tibetan, but there is another word in Tibetan which we have no translation in our languages. And very often I found this word in Tibetan, which is nyomon, being translated as emotions. But they mean two completely different things. So what is the word in Tibetan, nyomon? The definition is sem raptu mashiwar chebe na nyomon pao. Sem raptu mashiwar cheba. Sem means mind. Raptu means extremely strongly. Mashiwar means known peacefully. Cheba means to do, to make. So, is a mental defilement or a nyomon is any mental state that brings the mind of the person to a very strong state of known peace, of unpeacefulness. For example, desire. Is desire a state of mind that brings the person to an unpeaceful state or not? When we feel strong desire, how do we feel? Peaceful, calm? Or we feel some agitation from inside and we feel unpeaceful? Unpeaceful. If desire was something peaceful and pleasurable, we would have no need to get the object of desire. We would just stay in desire. Oh, so nice, no? Instead, the stronger is the desire, the stronger is the urge to get the object of desire in order to pacify ourselves. So, that's why it's a so-called mental defilement, which is one of the translations that is given, which in Tibetan is nyomon, but we remember we do not have a word for that. So similar to that, there are many different states of mind, words that we don't have in our culture, the concept, and that's a big difficulty of translation. No? So this is just to make an introduction to the fact that when we listen to the teachings, we listen in a different way than those that listened to it in the centuries that passed where the teachings were originally given. Okay? So we may take some aspects for granted when actually they are not. For example, one very essential word that we use, which in Tibetan is ngechung, that is translated most oftenly as renunciation, but that have a complete different meaning of renunciation. The word renunciation in English, it brings a strong aspect of sacrifice. You need to renounce something, it brings sacrifice. While the word in Tibetan, ngejung or ngebar junga, it means ngebar means certainty, junga means to emerge. So it's the certain emergence. It's the certainty that we can emerge out of suffering. We are inside of suffering, we can get out of suffering, we can emerge out of it. So it's a complete different concept. One concept is I renounce, so I give up something that is good, that I like, that I am attached to. Another concept is I believe that I can get out from where I am. I believe that I can get out of suffering. So I have a definitive emergence. That's the translation. And some people sometimes even translate definitive emergency. It's not an emergency. It's not like, okay, calamity, we need something to happen. No. It's the certainty that we can get out. Out of what? From the ocean of samsara, from our own cycle of suffering. We are able to emerge out of it, to get out of it. It's the certainty that I can emerge out of suffering. I can do it. That's the so-called renunciation, which has nothing to do with renunciation, the actual word. This is one example. Another example, which I didn't say in Italian, but after I do the translation in Italian. The word Buddha. Luckily, we didn't translate it somehow. But the fact is that when we talk about Buddha, most of the times, who do we connect to? Buddha Shakyamuni. Buddha Shakyamuni was one Buddha. There are many other Buddhas. Why we have, for example, that painting there, where you have all the Buddhas. You see so many Buddhas. These are said to be 1,000 Buddhas of this era. Okay? Because actually Buddha is a state of being. And Buddha Shakyamuni was one Buddha, which in Tibetan we say Sangha. When Buddhism came to Tibet, it was very interesting because the kings, they paid a lot of money at the time for the scholars to study and after to translate the text and so on. So they made a meeting, a very important meeting at one point, that lasted I think 3 years, where great scholars, they put themselves together and they made a whole manual of how texts should be translated from Sanskrit to Tibetan. And there is a whole part in which is explaining how new words should be created. So for example, the word Buddha didn't exist in Tibetan, so they create the new word in the language, which is Sangha, which is a meaning translation. The word in Tibetan, Sangha, which means gives the meaning of Buddha, it's not a literal translation, it brings the meaning of Buddha. Sang means eliminate, clear away. Ge means develop, grow. So if we would make nowadays a literal translation of Sangha, we'll make I take refuge in the clear away, develop. Doesn't sound nice to us, doesn't fit. But what does that mean? What is a Buddha? It's the one that have cleared away all mental defilements and all suffering and the cause of suffering. And is the one that have developed the maximum of the potential, his own qualities. That's what a Buddha is. Sangha. So it's a very different concept. Okay? So it's important for us slowly to understand the meaning better of the words and try to understand, okay, how do we listen to the teachings? So this part, it was actually just a preparation for what I want to say. Okay? So, as we have this basis of coming from a different culture from which the teachings were originally given, there is one aspect which I feel sometimes quite strongly, which is the fact that we put ourselves in a very far away position than all the Buddhas and so on. We are not in the same plane. They are Buddhas, I am a just ordinary, stupid, sentient being. Okay, maybe not so stupid, but I am an ordinary sentient being, or maybe more stupid. I don't know how each one of us see ourselves. The fact is that even though we see ourselves as an ordinary being, we at the same time never put ourselves on the same plane, which is possible even, but we don't see ourselves, okay, I am made of the same structure, the same basis as Buddha. No, Buddhas are there, I am here, I have nothing to do with them. So please, Buddha, help me. And sometimes we do the same thing with the Guru. We go to the Guru and say, oh, I take refuge in the Guru, oh, my faith, my respect, I take refuge in the Guru. Please, Guru, do whatever you want to do with me. Take care of me. And that's not the way. The way is, I take refuge in the Guru, please tell me what I need to do and I will follow. But I need to walk with my own legs. And the path through which the Buddhas have passed, the Bodhisattvas have passed, and through which they have reached the state of Buddhahood, is the same path that I can go through also. And this is something that for us very often is difficult to go through. It's difficult to understand because we come from a different context. No? Somehow, I'm sorry to use this word maybe, but like we see ourselves as the sinner. And we put the Buddha in the place of the God. But Buddha has nothing to do with the concept of God, and us as practitioners have nothing to do with the concept of sinner. But we have the tendency to adapt, It's like when people come and say, who is the Buddhist Pope? We don't have a Pope. Ah, really? Yeah. Oh, and who are your cardinals? No cardinals either. Because it's normal. Our tendency is to see the world through the eyes that we have, through what we are used to. So what happens is that we need just to be careful to understand that when we look at ourselves and when we look at it, Buddha was no other than a person just like us, with many special qualities, that could reach a state of well-being, of peace, so-called enlightenment, of developing one's own qualities to the maximum potentials while eliminating every cause of suffering. So, it became very important for us to understand this process in which we can actually reach the state. And it's not something that may come from, we are not asking someone to save us from our suffering. We are requesting someone to guide us so that we can develop our qualities, get out of suffering, and help others to do the same. That's what we are asking. No? So, one important aspect in this is first understanding where we are, what are the resources that we have, and then based on where we are, on what we have, we can say, where can I be? Where can I reach? What is the result that I can reach? And based on that, we can say, okay, what are the steps that I need to do to reach that? In Tibetan, we call Shilam Dresum, the basis, the path, and the result. Even when we talk from a very mundane point of view, let's say there is a company, and someone comes to do some consulting for the company. One of the things that normally these people do in consulting, they will say, okay, where do you imagine the company in a 10-year time? Let's say I sell chocolate balls. Okay, you are selling your chocolate balls. Where do you want to reach in the market of chocolate in 10 years' time? Oh, I want to sell chocolates everywhere because in all the schools, so all kids will always have chocolates, because at the time then I will also buy some market of dentists, then I can do the two business together. No? Whatever. I just make my own objective, I put my way where I want to be on the market. Second step is that the first step is that the object that we plan must be coherent with the resources that we have. We should not put an object that is totally incoherent with the resources that we have. Otherwise, it's like if I say, I want to get pregnant. I'm sorry, even though I may wish so much to be pregnant, can I get pregnant? What is the only possibility through which I can get pregnant? To die, to be reborn as a woman, and then who knows, maybe I get pregnant.
because it's not a certainty even that. So in this life with this body, it's a useless objective because I don't have the basis to reach it. So the objective must be coherent with the basis. Once we put clear the objective, then we come with the path. And the path is, how can I use the resources I have right now in order to reach the state that I want to reach? This is called the path. Okay. In Borobudur, these three aspects are clearly represented for me. On the first level of the stupa, there is one sutra which is called the Mahakarma Vibhanga. Dote Legyapa in Tibetan. The Mahakarma Vibhanga is in the very first level of Borobudur, which nowadays is covered. We cannot see it anymore. And it's a sutra in which it's explaining, Buddha explains the basis in which we are, which is explaining samsara, showing the law of cause and effect, showing the different realms of existence where we can be reborn. It's showing where are we right now. And we want to get out of this state. So this is first thing showing, okay, here we are and better we get out of this. So this is the first level. The second level after that is showing actually the result, which is the Sutra of Lalita Vistara, the one we have represented here, between the center and the Gompa, on the stones on the pathway. There is the Sutra, which is called the Lalita Vistara, the Divine Place Sutra, in which it's representing the whole life of Buddha, from his birth up to enlightenment. So in this process, what happened is that actually it's showing what is the final result. It is showing the state of enlightenment that we want to reach. But at the same time, it's showing a result that is coherent with our potential. Because Buddha was a human being just as we are. Okay? But it's mainly showing the results. Someone otherwise we could say, oh yes, Buddha reached enlightenment. That's so wonderful, so much faith I have in Buddha. But look at me, how can I do anything? Then come the next sutra, which is the Gandhavyuha Sutra. The Gandhavyuha Sutra is a Mahayana Sutra in which is explaining how can we ordinary practitioners reach enlightenment. So it's like, here, this is samsara. That's how Buddha got out of samsara. That's our example to follow. And here come an example of an ordinary person that is not famous, it's not the Buddha. It's an ordinary person that actually reached enlightenment. And in this path of reaching enlightenment, there is a story of how he reached enlightenment. He met with 50 different gurus, of which 25 were women and 25 were men. So by meeting all these different gurus, the practitioner went through until he was learning by each one of them, he was learning something new. And on that process, he reached the state of enlightenment. We are very lucky that Lama Caroline have studied this sutra in the details, and then we have all the panels, and then she's going to be sharing with us and explaining the sutras in these next days, okay? But first, I just wanted to bring us the basis of the concept that is in the sutra, which I believe that is very important for us to understand. So, as we talk about the fact that on the path, as it's shown in the Gandhavyuha, that we have the basis, which is the samsara in which we are. The resultant state, which is the resultant state of Buddhahood that we want to reach. But some of us may put the position which is say, okay, Buddha was wonderful, but I am completely ignorant and incapable of doing anything. Buddha is there, I am here. That's when comes the Gandhavyuha Sutra, in which it's showing, look, that guy, ordinary person, just as we are, and he simply was a seeker of truth, was someone looking for enlightenment, as we are here. And he went to one guru, which was not Buddha Shakyamuni, so was later, just as we are. And then he went to one guru, he gave him one teaching, sent him to another guru, and finally he went through all the 50 gurus. And one aspect that is showing is that it's possible to reach enlightenment. So one thing very important for me in Buddhism is that not only we must have faith in Buddha that shows us the path, faith in the Dharma, the actual path to follow, faith in the Sangha, the spiritual community that helps us, faith in the Guru that is the embodiment of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. That's not enough. We must have faith in ourselves, faith in our own potential of enlightenment. And both us and the Buddha, we are made of the same stuff. If we make a metaphor, it's like, imagine clay, and we are like, if you take, some clay and you put together like a bunch of clay, and then you take the same amount of clay, and with that same amount of clay, there is a beautiful vase that is made. So the vase is done in a very nice shape and so on. The vase and the clay, are them of the same nature? Are both of them made of clay or not? Yes. What is the main difference between the two? The shape. But they are both made of clay. We are just a piece of clay without any specific beautiful shape, okay? A Buddha, becoming a Buddha is to give a beautiful shape to that same clay. The Buddha is the vase. We are just a piece of clay. Some piece of clay is really not so nice. Other piece of clay is really much nicer. But not yet a beautiful vase. But the Buddha is just the actual vase. The important thing is to understand that we are made of the same essence, in the sense that I am just a piece of clay. Becoming a Buddha means shaping that piece of clay into a beautiful vase. Okay. So, reaching enlightenment is not from a piece of clay becoming a piece of glass. Reaching enlightenment is shaping the piece of clay into a beautiful vase. Okay? So it means taking what we are now and transforming it into something else, but that continues to be oneself. It's like, for example, if we look to ourselves in the past, okay, and we imagine, like, let's say, imagine that we can go back into the past. Like Back to the Future, that movie that I had once. So let's say we go back into our past, like 20 years, 30 years back. And then suddenly we see ourselves 20 years ago. Can we recognize ourselves in that guy? Not really, I am not that. What we are now is the same body. No, my body now is not the same body of 20 years ago. The mind I have now, is it the same mind? No. Very often what people say, I would like so much to go back 20 years ago, but with the mind of what I have now. I would love to have the body of 20 years ago with the mind that I have now. I'm sorry, that's not possible, no? So the fact is that if we take ourselves of 20 years ago, we will see clearly that the body that we had is not the body that we have. The mind that we had is not the mind that we have. Everything is different. So the two persons, the one of now and the one of 20 years ago, they're not the same. But they are the same continuum. It's the same clay put into different shapes. Okay. Similar to that, one day when we will become a Buddha, it's the same clay put into different shape. As a Buddha, we will look backwards and we'll say, oh, look, that day when I was in Albagnano receiving teachings and going to see my Guru. It was me. Becoming a Buddha, it doesn't mean like getting disconnected with our own reality and becoming something completely different. It's ourselves in a different way. We shape ourselves differently. It's like one time when I was a little kid, I was around 10 years old, and I remember clearly this moment. I was in the car going back from school. My father picked me up, and together was a friend of his. And they were both talking in the car, and they were having a discussion in which they were saying, my father asked the question and was saying, if you could reach enlightenment right now, would you? And then this lady, she answered, she said, oh, no. My life is too good right now, I'm beautiful and young, I am enjoying myself so much, can I wait a little bit more, then I want to reach enlightenment. I was remembering that when I was listening to that, I said, these people are crazy. Because the point is like, not understanding the actual meaning of enlightenment, in the sense that thinking that to reach enlightenment means reaching a state that is completely disconnected from what we are right now. And when we go through the teachings and we look every quality of a Buddha, there is not one quality that is described in a Buddha that is not connected with our aspects of our body and mind right now. Everything that we see in a Buddha is the same of what we are, shaped in a different way. And this is actually something very powerful to understand. That we are not talking about becoming something completely disconnected from ourselves, but actually of transforming of what we are and becoming something different. No? And one thing which I was just reflecting, for instance, when we say that all the Buddhas are of the same nature, but they have different, but they still keep their own identity, their own personality. It's similar, their own individuality. It's like, let's say, we all want to become doctors. So we all work very hard to become doctors. We all get a doctorate degree. So we are all doctors. We are same as doctors. It's not that one is a higher doctor, other one is a lower doctor. As doctors, we are all the same. But we still keep our own individuality. Okay? Maybe we have the same knowledge about different things, but we are still different. Similar to that, all Buddhas are of the same nature, but they still keep their own individuality. They have the same amount of love and compassion. It's not that one Buddha have more compassion than the other, or one Buddha have less anger than the other, or whatever. They all have eliminated anger, jealousy, pride, ignorance, selfishness, and so on. They all have developed purely and completely the state of love and compassion and wisdom and so on. But still they keep their own identity, their own individuality. Okay? And one thing which one time I was reading and teaching, and first moment it was difficult to understand it and to accept it. And then slowly I was somehow getting a better meaning of that. And was related with the practice of Tara Chittamani. And it is said that once we do the long retreat of Tara Chittamani, if we do like as a main practice Tara Chittamani, we must also do together the practice of Maritse and the practice of Norgyuma. Norgyuma is Maritse, most of us we know. Norgyuma is a female form similar to Zambala to develop wealth. And what is said is that at some point in the very far away past, before Tara became enlightened, and before Norgyuma became enlightened, they had some problems between them. So there was some bad fighting between Tara and Norgyuma before becoming enlightened, okay? For whatever reason, they had conflicts. I don't remember now the details about the story, but fact is that there was some problem between them. And the fact is that because of that interdependence, even though after reaching enlightenment, where there is no any problem between them, if you do only one practice and you don't do the other, you get some side effect. Which would be, if you only do the practice of Tara Chittamani and you don't do Norgyuma, you will have problems with wealth. Because Norgyuma is the one giving wealth. And then Norgyuma is a bit like jealous type that you are not doing the practice of Norgyuma and only Tara. Which doesn't mean that Norgyuma is jealous or anything like that. It means there is an interdependence. But for me, what I want to say is that it shows that somehow that even as Buddhas, they keep their own individuality, their own identity, in a way. And for me, this is very powerful because it means we are the basis for what we can become as a Buddha. We are made of the same nature. We and the Buddhas are both made out of clay. Let's make, following the metaphor of before. It's just a different shape that is given to the clay. We are the clay, the piece of clay that is not nicely shaped. And a Buddha is the same clay made as a beautiful vase, free of the impurities. So, that's why it's so important for us to develop this. But the question that we do is, how do we shape ourselves into a Buddha? And here comes the path. And here comes the need for ourselves to meet a guru. Okay? And here comes the Sutra of Gandavyuha that is showing all of this to us. So, what happens is that when we talk about relying upon the guru, how is that actually happening? is the fact that I want to follow a path and I trust someone, I entrust myself to someone to guide me on that path. Okay? The more I am stable on my path, the more gurus I can have. The more I am unstable on my path, the less gurus I have, the better. It's like if I am sick. And first of all, before this, there is a big difference between two things. There is a difference between relying upon a spiritual guide and being friend of a spiritual guide. It's like there is a difference of relying upon a doctor as a patient and being friend of a good doctor. There is a big difference between the two. Huh? Both of them are nice, but it's different. I can be friend and I can rely as a doctor. And I can simply be a friend and never rely as a doctor. And some of us, we think that because we are friend of the Guru, we will reach enlightenment. If I do not rely as a practitioner that wants to follow the path, I will not. You know? It's not because I am the friend of the Buddha that necessarily when I die I will get a better rebirth or whatever. Oh, you know, you go to the bardo and then say, oh yeah, I'm the friend of the Buddha, so I need to go. No, there's no special pathways because I'm a friend of the Buddha. No? There's no special treatment from the karma because I am a friend of the Guru or whatever. It's very nice to be a friend of the Guru. It's a wonderful thing. But there's a big difference between being a friend of a doctor and being his patient. No? Being his patient means I want to take the medicine. I follow the procedures. Being his friends means, okay, you are nice, I like your company, and it's nice, you know. And sometimes what we want is not to take the medicine. We want to be by the company of the doctor. So we make many appointments. We go to see the doctor. We say that we are sick. We complain about our sickness. We discuss about the medicines. But we never truly take the medicine because we like going to the doctor, because the doctor is nice and kind and so on. Okay, this is what we do sometimes in the spiritual part, okay? We like being by the presence of the Guru. We love the Guru. It's so nice to be with him. But we don't want truly to follow our own path. Sometimes it happens. I'm sorry if I am so direct, but this is what happens sometimes, okay? So, on the other hand, what happens is that to rely upon, it means I want to follow a path and you are the one guiding me on that path. So please show me the path. If I am in the very beginning, and let's say use the metaphor of the doctor, I'm the beginning of my process of getting cured from my disease, but I'm not really sure which way is my path. So I go to the normal allopathic doctor. He gives me one treatment and gives me one diagnosis. Then I go to an homeopathic doctor. He gives me another treatment and a slightly different diagnosis. Then I go to the Chinese doctor. He gives me another treatment. Then I go to the Tibetan doctor. He gives me another treatment. Then I go to the shamanic doctor and he gives me another treatment. And then I don't know what treatment to do because each one is telling me something different. And I see incoherences between them. And I say, so you are saying that the allopathic doctor is wrong because he said this and you are telling me that. And you are telling me that the other doctor is wrong because he said this. And then finally, you know, we are not following any real process of cure. Okay? So what happens is that when we are in the beginning of our process of cure, and we are not certain about our path, it's better to follow one doctor. When we are really stable on our path, then we can say, okay, this is the path of curing that I'm following. From this tradition of medicine, this can help me. From that tradition of medicine, that can help me. And then we can go to different doctors and then we can be complementary one to each other on the same path. So this is something, like I was talking to one person that was giving me a similar example some other day and was saying that in France nowadays, there are places where they accept multi-tradition of healing, curing. And for example, it's normal in some places that the patient will go to the doctor and will first go, for example, to the allopathic doctor. And they say, yes, look, but after going to you, I'm going to an homeopathic doctor. And then the doctor said, okay, if you are going there, I'm not going to give you this medicine, because most probably the homeopathic medicine is going to give you that medicine. He gave the example of the Hypericum, and the Hypericum is going to take away the effect of this medicine that I was going to give to you, so I'm not going to give you this medicine. Then the same person, it's a true story, the same person went to the homeopathic doctor, and he gave him the Hypericum exactly. And then he said, you know, doctor, everything is nice, but after you, I am going for acupuncture. And then he said, yes, so if you are going for acupuncture, I'm not going to give you that medicine, because most probably for the problem you have, the Chinese doctor wants to stimulate this and that meridian, which will change the effect of this and that medicine, so I'm not going to give you this medicine. This is the best way, no? Which means each medicine have a different aspect that can help us on our path of healing. But we need to use them harmoniously. But when we are not certain of our path, then it becomes difficult to follow different aspects. Sure, when the doctors don't respect each other, it becomes even much more difficult, no? Similar to that, on our spiritual path, when we are not certain about our path, it's better to have one guru. The more we are stable on our path, the more we truly take refuge in the Dharma, the more gurus we have, the better it is. Lama Tsongkhapa had more than 100 gurus. You know, like in the Gandhavyuha Sutra, we are talking about 50 gurus. And each one is giving a different aspect. I have got many gurus. Some of them taught me more philosophy, another one taught me more meditation, another one taught me one specific aspect of philosophy, another one gave me examples of life. Each one of them giving me different aspects which I need on my path. And they are all part of the guru, the guidance to enlightenment. Each of one is giving me a different aspect of the actual guidance to enlightenment. And the importance of the guru is not because of the person, it's because of the role. The reason why we need to have respect and gratitude and the level of importance, why guru, one of the meanings of the word guru, it means heavy. Why the guru is heavy? Because it's one of the relations that have the most heavy impact in our lives. Strong, heavy as strong, as important. So it's not a matter of respecting the guru because of who he is as a person, but of what he's giving to us and what he means in our lives. It's like, let's say there are 3 people that are teaching me things. One person is teaching me how to survive, how to cook, and how to relate to other people in a positive way. One person is teaching me how to read and write, and the other person is teaching me how to make manicure, how to make my nails, okay, paint them beautifully and make my nails nice. By chance, the one that is making my nails nice is the most nice person that I ever met. Nice guy, nice person, I like him or her. The one that is teaching me how to read and write, okay, nice, but nothing so special. And the one that is actually teaching me how to survive and how to relate now correctly with people and giving me the deeper aspects that I need in my life is a person that actually I really don't like him so much, but he's teaching me the most precious things. Okay? Whom is the one to whom I should be the most grateful? And who is the one that has a stronger impact in my life? The one that teaches me how to make the nails? The one that teaches me how to read and write? Or the one that teaches me how to survive and eat and relate to others? The third one. Okay. So when we talk about the importance of the guru, it's not because of who he is as a person, but because of who he represents in our lives. Because of the role that he has in our lives, of guiding us on the spiritual path, of giving us the most precious things. And why do we need a guru? Because alone we can only see what we can see. We are not able to see what we cannot see. So the guru is the one that is opening our eyes to what normally we cannot see. He's the one that has seen things that we have not seen yet, and is able to show us the way how to open our eyes. Because if I just remain by myself, I am here, and I just see what I see and I finish there. So, and the guru is not necessarily the Lama traditional position of the guru. As we look in the Sutra of Gandhavyuha, as we will see these days, There were gurus in all different aspects. Guru is a person that transmits something to us, which is not necessarily verbal. Actually, a guru is a person that comes and gives us his experience, gives us the knowledge, the love, things that are not verbal and are so important on our path. And we have nowadays this very wrong understanding that is enough to access the knowledge. I was talking to two university professors that were completely frustrated because nowadays they need to give classes by recording the class in front of a camera with no students. And then after the students listen to the class by internet. And they were saying, you are killing the knowledge, This is the most terrible thing we can do. And they're fighting at the university to try to change this, but until now they're not able. And then he was complaining, the last things that the people responsible for the education system in the university came to this professor. And he's saying, if you are teaching mathematics, it's not okay, but it's more easy. He's an anthropologist. And he's saying, no. And now they're asking me to give them pills. 10, 15 minutes pills. And I need to have exchange, not pills, he was saying, no? Which means more and more we don't see the importance of the non-verbal, non-conceptual transmission, which in the Buddhist tradition is fundamental. I was talking yesterday to a friend, and she was telling me, even as if it was something like, maybe she was saying, look how incredible. When I read the things again and again in the book, I understand them up to a certain level, but when the teacher is explaining to me, it enters in a completely different way. Because the transmission is not only conceptual. It's much deeper. So the importance of having a guru, or one or more gurus, is the guru is the person that is an example of what we want to develop. There is loving us, that we can trust, and that is trusting us, is someone to whom we can open our heart, and we have a deeper exchange. And then is also giving us knowledge, and is making us to enter in contact with the deepest aspect of knowledge and understanding. And once we enter in contact with the person that guides us on the path, even after when the person leaves the body and dies, still that same person continues to guide us by all that we have received and all that we enter in contact and so on. But a physical human contact is fundamental on our path. We doesn't need to be with one person, it can be with many people. That's what we will see in the Gandhavyuha. 25 teachers were women, 25 teachers were men. This is also to take out this idea that a spiritual guide must be a man, that sometimes people think like this just because historically, culturally, most of the spiritual teachers inside Buddhism end up to be men, but necessarily doesn't need to be like that. Necessarily, they don't need to be a monk. In the Gandhavyuha, one of the teachers is a prostitute. Another one is a guy selling wine. We can learn so much. It's like in the life of Saint Francis. Because one of the neat things that is really important in able to learn is a humility. When we give respect and we open ourselves to others, we need to be humble. So in the life of Saint Francis, there is one passage of his life that really touched me when I read it, in which he was making one traveling in the end of his life. He had bone tuberculosis, and he was blind already because of his sickness. And what happened was that he couldn't walk, had too much pain in his body. So he was being taken by a little donkey and one little farmer. This farmer, very simple person, was taking him on the donkey. He was the donkey of the farmer. And then at a certain point, the farmer told him, he said, "Oh, so you are the very famous Francis, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes." "Oh, be careful, huh? Be careful how you act, because people have such a big expectation in you. Be careful how the way you act, not to go against their expectations." He could have said, "Okay, thank you, and continue." He could have said, "Who are you to tell me how I need to do and act?" Instead, St. Francis, he came down off the donkey with all the pain that he had in his body. He put himself in his knees in front of the farmer, and sincerely and deeply said, I deeply thank you for your precious advice. And then slowly, without saying anything more, he went back into the donkey with all the pain he had, and he continued his traveling. You know, it is said in the teachings the importance of us to be grateful even for the smallest of teaching we receive. It doesn't matter from whom. We must be grateful for those that taught us how to read and write, first of all. Because when we are grateful, it means that we give value to what we receive. The more value I give, the more important that is for me. That's why, for example, when we receive teachings, we make offerings. I never received one teaching for which I didn't make an offering. And I was never requested to make an offering for every teaching I ever received. And here in the West, some time ago when we were in Holland, Rinpoche was telling how difficult it was for him to make us understand the beauty of making offerings. And he was saying, when I arrived here in the West, what's the normal way? People ask me, how much does it cost? That's our common question. And we have the idea that because I pay for something, I don't need to be grateful. I don't know where we take this idea from. It's completely stupid, but we have this idea. And we have the idea that if I receive something and I don't pay, or it's worthless, or I remain in debt. And I don't like remaining in debt, so I prefer to pay the price. Like there is a generosity of giving, and then there is generosity of receiving also, And when we talk about the Dharma doesn't have any price. This is one of the reasons why I took away the prices of the teachings in the center. And I still put a lot of energy in this concept of Sarvadharma. Concept of Sarvadharma means what? Together, we help to pay the expenses of the center. That's all, actually, And the way how I really want, this is just a prototype of Sarvadharma, okay? The real Sarvadharma, how is in my mind, how I really want, is whenever I made an offering to my teachers when I receive a teaching, I ask myself, how much shall I give? What shall I offer? And the answer that I found was, I should offer what is not too much and is not too less. It becomes too much when I start to feel miser about it and I start feeling that I will miss it. It's too less when I see, okay, that's just a formality, I don't care about it, When it's something that is meaningful, but at the same time it's not heavy, it's the right amount. For one person can be 50 cents, for another person can be 1 million. It depends what is the value that we give, So my idea for the center, and for every Dharma center, is just as it was in the past. Each one of us offer whatever is the right amount for us. And together we pay the expenses which are necessary for the whole center, Because there are expenses, Like as we are here, as we use the microphone, we have the light, we have to pay taxes for property. Even a few weeks ago, I was looking at all the bills of the center for light and gas, and it's like shocking. Because the center is big. So just to give one number, just to understand why we pay something for the center when we come here. A year, more or less, how much we spend as a center for gas and electricity. Around 90,000 euros a year. Okay. And if we look, why? It's big. So many people, so much happening all the time. And then we try to do our best to try to make less and less. That's why we ask each time you go, you turn off the light. And by that, you are helping somehow also, But what I want to say is that we participate together to make this possible. But the way how I really wish, and I hope one day we get there, is that each and every one of us offer whatever is the right amount for us, out of gratitude. And by this we make possible for everything to be there for everyone. Because it really harmed me, the idea of having a price for the teachings. Not because of the need. The need is the center needs money to pay the expenses. That's okay. The problem is not for the ones that are receiving the money. The problem is from the ones that need to pay, Because the way how we pay, we say how much it costs. It costs 10. Okay, so I pay, finish. I don't need more gratitude. My relation is finished here, no? Instead, when there is no price, we give the price of our own gratitude. And this is important. Also because when we talk about making an offering, when we talk about paying respect, it means giving value. When I give value, it means something is important. When it's important, I take good care of it. It's like having a precious ingredient in our kitchen. If we have a very good cheese, let's say, okay? Like some time ago, I was down in Parma and I got a very nice cheese. I don't use the cheese for any stupid reason. I'm not going to throw away the cheese and let the cheese get old. I'm going to take very good care of the cheese. I'm going to use the cheese where the taste of the cheese can be well felt. I'm not going to put the cheese in some places where I cannot feel anymore the taste of the cheese. I'm taking good care of that cheese because there's a special cheese, because I give value to it, I give importance to it. The more I give value, the better care I take, the better way I use it. When we don't give value, when we don't give enough respect for the teachings and for the teachers, we take it for granted, and after some time, we don't put it into practice. So one thing I learned, even though in my natural way of being since I was a small kid, I always gave a lot of respect for Rinpoche and my teachers and so on. It was always spontaneous for me to stand up when Rinpoche entered, to bow down. Like until now, I'm not able to take a picture together with Rinpoche. I am not able, I put myself nearby. And even when I was in the monastery, some of my teachers and someone, they would make fun out of me. Because when we arrived the phone call to Rinpoche, from Rinpoche, I would take the phone and I could not sit down. I needed to stand up and curve myself while I was talking to him. And they were making, Rinpoche is not in front of you. Why do you need to stand up and put yourself like, he's not seeing that you are like this, It's not a matter of he's seeing me. It's a matter of manifesting through my body the gratitude and respect that I have. And then one time I was in Italy, and one of the things that for me was not conceivable was to sit at the same height at the same place as Rinpoche. So I arrived in Milan, in Rinpoche's house. There was this little room in Milan, like really small, and Rinpoche used to sit on his bed that was just a mattress with a tatami, because the room was very low, so there wasn't even not high enough to put a normal bed in the room. So we would sit around in the floor, and Rinpoche would give teachings, make pujas, and so on. So one day I arrived there, and the room was completely packed with people, no place to sit around. I was sitting near the corridor somewhere. Then Rinpoche said, no, come here, sit in the bed with me. And I said, Rinpoche, no, I'm not sitting there in your bed together with you in the same level. I'm not able to. He said, no. Then I find myself in this difficult situation. Like when Rinpoche say, don't stand up when he come in. He come in sometimes say, don't stand up. What is a greater lack of respect? Not doing what he's telling me or not standing up, So finally I understood he's not doing what he's telling me, so I stay there, So at that time, Rinpoche said, sit here 2-3 times, and I said, okay. I went there and I sat there. But I sit in the corner of the bed, a little bit like not so comfortable there like this. And then some days ago, next day, whenever I came back, same situation. Room packed with people. He came, he looked to me, he said like this, and I just went there and I sit there, not in the corner of the bed anymore, a little bit more comfortable already. Some days ago, same situation, but the room was not packed. There was place for me to sit around in the floor. Where did I go to sit? On the bed. Naturally. Then I looked and I said, what am I doing? Then luckily I stood up, I went and I sat down. Rinpoche saying, why are you sitting there? I said, no, Rinpoche, because there is place here. That's where I should be. And what I saw was that gradually, by not doing the formalities, the external way of respect, I was losing at this very small level, but somehow I was losing my internal way of respect. So one day I went to Rinpoche and I said, Rinpoche, I know that I don't need formalities with you, but I need them. I know that you don't need me to respect you in a formal way, but I need to be formal in some things. For example, to stand up when Rinpoche comes into a place. to do my prostrations when I go to see him, to make offerings. I need it to cultivate my gratitude, to cultivate my respect, which is fundamental for my path. And if I do not do the external respect, after some time I see it changing something internally. So I don't want that. I said, I'm weak, I need that. It's not a matter of being, if we do the external respect just externally, as a matter of formality, and we are being false because internally we don't feel any respect, then it's better not to do. To have false respect is not good at all. But to have artificial respect is very good. There is a very big difference between being artificial and being false, fake. Being fake means I have no respect for you, but because I am in a context where it's better for me to show you respect, I'm going to show you respect. But truly, I have no any true feeling of respect. Okay, so it's just a formality. Boom, nothing more. To have respect artificially, to be artificial means I am there, my guru come in, I feel somehow it would be right to stand up, but I'm lazy, I'm not standing up, so it's not coming spontaneously. But then I remember the gratitude, I remember the respect I feel, and I say, I must manifest it. So I put an effort and I stand up. It's not coming spontaneously, so it's artificial, but it's sincere. It's clear the difference. Fake means that it's not sincere. Artificial means it's not spontaneous, but it's sincere. And if we do not keep the respect, the gratitude in an external way also, we would not be able easily to keep it internally. It's much more difficult. And who loses after all? Ourselves. So it's important for us to cultivate our respect, our gratitude. Why? Because the Guru is the one showing us the path that we are following. This is a fundamental aspect for us to remember. There is a path that we are following with our legs. And our Gurus are the one giving us the tools and opening us the path for us to walk. Showing us the direction, teaching us how to walk, giving us the tools. But we are the ones walking. But if we are walking in a certain direction, if we are walking in a certain place, if we reach a certain place, it's because he was the one that showed us how to do that. So we need to be grateful for that. So, gratitude and respect are fundamental qualities for us in our own path. The more gratitude and respect we have, the stronger is our path. And one important thing on that, having gratitude doesn't mean being inferior. Hey, giving respect doesn't mean that I am inferior. Like there is one scene that I saw once that touched me deeply. I was in the monastery, and I was invited by one friend of mine, and which was called Ngakchen Tulku. Together with one of my teachers, he invited us together to go to see the movie of the Little Buddha. It had just come out. In the monastery, was not allowed to see any movies or television. So it was a sort of, clandestine, how to say in English? Clandestine, like movie watching. So it was quite funny because we worked together with the two most respected teachers of the monastery, and we were doing something like sneaking around, like we couldn't do somehow. It was a quite interesting feeling. We went on one of the rooms of the school where they had a TV for educational reasons, and one of the lamas that was there was called Rato Kyongla Rinpoche, living in France, and he was one of the actors of the movie. That's why he had a cassette of the movie, no? So we watched the movie in this terrible old television that it was terrible. Anyhow, we watched the movie there together. And what happened was that Lama Ozel was also there together. It was a nice moment. But the most beautiful moment for me, which deeply touched me, and I get touched even by remembering right now, is before watching the movie. I went together with my friend to wait for the Rato Kyonlo Rinpoche and the Khen Rinpoche, Kajin Losam Sopa Rinpoche, the abbot of Tashilumpo. I went to wait for them for us to go together to the school. And we were outside of the room of the Siraje guest house where Rato Kyonlo Rinpoche was staying, because he was living in France, and at that time, so he was staying in the guest house. So it was a room of like a hotel room. So basically, in the moment they opened the door, and we were waiting, they were finishing to have some teachings. And it was the most beautiful thing to see. It was, I don't remember now who was where, but they had a bed. And half of the bed was higher, like with 3-4 high cushions, like, let's say, a palm higher than the other half. And with the brocades and the double dorje, beautifully respected. And one was giving teachings to the other. And when one was giving teachings, the one that were receiving, he would do prostrations, mandala offering. He would sit in the lower part, and we received the transmission that he had never received before. Then after, when this finished, in the same day, then they would exchange. Then the one that was receiving the teaching would sit on the throne. The other one that was giving the teaching before would make the prostrations, give respect, and receive the teaching. For me, it was one of the most beautiful things I saw. And it was this deep way of respect. And this was a clear sign that when you respect someone, you are not respecting the person because he's superior to you or whatever. It's because you are grateful for what he's giving you and his value for what you were receiving. When we respect the teacher, when we receive the teachings, it's not because of the teacher, it's because of the value of the Dharma. The only reason I'm sitting into this strange place that we call a throne is because of the value of the Dharma. That's the only reason. The more we give value to the Dharma, the more we put it into practice. So it's also important for us in our own way to cultivate it. We don't need to be fake, but we need to be a bit artificial because our habits are not necessarily the best. So we need to direct ourselves to act in a way that helps us to cultivate the qualities that we want to cultivate. And two fundamental qualities is respect and gratitude. Okay? So just putting together is the fact that we need to rely upon a guru because we need someone that helps us to see what we are not able to see, to follow a path. The guru is the one showing us the path, giving us the tools, opening us, showing us the path, and helping us to walk. We can have many gurus, as in the Gandhaviva Sutra is showing, that there were 70 gurus at least, 50 gurus there. 25 were women, 25 were men, showing that a guru doesn't necessarily need to be a man, as sometimes some people may think. A guru doesn't necessarily need to be a monk. You know, between the 50 gurus, there was a prostitute, there was a guy selling wine. And we need to have deep respect and gratitude for the people that even teach us something small. Starting from those that taught us how to read and write. The more I have gratitude, the more I own, the more I have received, the more value I give to what I have. And it's so beautiful. This is fundamental for us. Okay? So it's not a matter of being inferior. It's a matter of giving value to what we receive. That's why there is no price. We're not buying anything. We are actually manifesting and cultivating our gratitude and respect through the body and through material things, which is also important for ourselves, not for anyone else. Okay? So, this is just a little bit I wanted to bring today to you, the idea of why to rely upon a guru and the importance and what's the meaning of it. Okay? And tomorrow morning we will have teachings together, and then afternoon hopefully Lama Caroline will be better, and then she will be giving the explanations of the Gandhaviva Sutra, and then Rinpoche will be give also teachings and practice together. Okay? So this is all for today. And then just remember these points, which are very important. And Lama Tsongkhapa put very clearly, in the very beginning of the path, the whole path to enlightenment, the very beginning is divided into two parts. First teachings, first fundamental teachings. How to rely correctly upon the Guru. Once having relied correctly upon the Guru, how to follow the path. Yeah? So, this is fundamental for us. Otherwise, we just remain going around where we are. And understanding that it's not being by the presence of the Guru what is important, which is also important. It's having a path to follow that the Guru is showing us. Following the metaphor, we can be very good friends with the doctor, but we need to be his patients, most of all. Because if we don't take the medicines, we do not go on. It's not because I'm a friend of the Buddha that necessarily, I will have a good rebirth. When I get to the bardo, it's not like I can say, oh, excuse me, can you let me in the Pure Land? I was a good friend of the Buddha. I'm sorry, if I do not develop my qualities and if I do not put in practice the Dharma, I will not be. Ananda was Buddha's attendant. He was 24 hours with Buddha. He was the last one from his disciples there to reach the state of Arhat. So it doesn't mean because you are necessarily by the side that necessarily you are a better disciple or whatever. And it's very two different things. One thing is to be near, is to be a good friend, and that's wonderful and beautiful. But the best thing is to be a good disciple, is to be a good patient, is to take the medicines, to follow the diet. And that's where we can get the best. Okay? It's important for us to remember that. And also because in our culture we have no idea what is a guru. It's not part of our culture. So we try to relate, and somehow it takes time. It takes a long time for each one of us to bring to our worldview a new concept, such as what is a guru. That's why we need to repeat it again and again and again and again and again. Having a guru doesn't mean losing one's own identity and one's own freedom. Some people think like that. Having a guru means following a path and having someone, one or more persons, that helps me on that path by showing me what I'm not able to see. By giving me tools that are helping me on my path. That's what it means to have a guru. Okay? That's what is important for us to understand on that path as we go together. Jetsun lame kutse rapten chi nam karatin le chochur gepa dang losan tempe drame sasumgi drove munsel tatu ne gyur nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shing nintsen taktu delek pe koncho sumki jingelo Concho sumke ngodrup sol, concho sumge trashishu. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.